As a self-confessed Apple fanboy, fully immersed in the Apple ecosystem with my iPhone, my Mac, my Apple Watch Ultra, this review is bittersweet. But sometimes, no matter how much you love someone, they can't give you everything you need. And sadly, you have to let them go. Now, this review isn't me stating that this HomePod 2 is a bad product, and far from it actually, but in 2023, I've decided that this one just isn't for me. And for some of you guys watching, I don't think this will be a good purchase, but it will be right for some of you out there. So let's get into it. First, we've got to go back to 2018 and the launch of the original HomePod, which came with a hefty price tag of £350. Now, in theory, this launch was a smart move for Apple. It's a natural market for them to step into, and it was a great sounding speaker, but it was a flop. And in 2021, Apple rather unceremoniously cut the HomePod from their website. That left the smaller HomePod Mini, released in 2020, with a much more affordable price tag of £99 as their only smart speaker option for the last 2 years, at a time when smart speakers have never been more popular. So, I've been waiting for Apple to reappear and wipe our memories of the failed HomePod with a brand new, all singing, all dancing product launch. And here it is. The HomePod 2. Looks pretty similar to the original, and it is pretty similar, very similar actually. But there are some changes worth highlighting. HomePod 2 has launched £50 cheaper than the first HomePod with a price tag of $299, which is actually the price the original HomePod dropped down to before it was discontinued. They've also made some slight tweaks to the design. The display now covers the whole of this top panel, which looks a lot nicer in my opinion, and the outer mesh is made from 100% recycled material, which is always a good thing. This colorway has also changed to their more recent midnight color, which I do prefer, and you also have this white option too. Now, you guys might remember the original HomePod in white caused some unexpected stains when left on a wooden surface, and it looks like that's still somewhat of a problem, albeit not to the same level with this new one. Now, massive shout out to MKBHD for testing that out so we didn't have to stain a perfectly good table. But even this new design leaves some marks on certain surfaces, so just something to be aware of. Now, one thing I've seen a lot of people are happy about is the change in cable design. Now, the power cable is of course removable, very useful design, which makes placing it on a desktop a lot easier. But I do have to say, if we are applauding Apple for a design feature which quite simply should have been there on the Gen 1 and is a standard expectation from speakers these days, then things are getting pretty desperate. Internally, Apple have now added the S7 chip to offer more processing power, plus 2 new sensors for temperature and humidity. So I can ask, hey Siri, what's the temperature in here?
It's 20.2 degrees Celsius in the SHS office.
It's a cool feature, but the real benefit is when you sync up other smart devices in your home to trigger a response to that information. So if the temperature drops below a certain number, you can trigger your heating to come on, for example. Now, we've also got a new sound recognition feature, which means that your HomePod can hear an alarm or a smoke detector and it will send an alert to your phone. Again, another nice feature, which is also now available on the HomePod Mini, but I guess it's the price you pay for Siri always listening. Oh, and we do get the nice handoff trick, so if we bring a supported iPhone near this touch surface, it's going to transfer whatever audio you're listening to directly to the HomePod. And that works with any third-party audio apps. And although there is a short delay for, say, transferring Spotify while it sets up AirPlay for you, it's certainly a step forward in functionality and work well with Spotify, which is a small consolation for not having Spotify Connect. We also see the introduction of Matter support with this new product. Now, Matter is probably something that we'll cover in an upcoming video, but essentially, it could be the solution that we've been needing for multi-brand and multi-device smart home functionality. Where currently we've been limited to remaining in one ecosystem to have a seamless experience and have had frustrations trying to get different products from different brands to play nicely together, Matter will act as the middleman or bridge. The HomePod 2 has Matter support, but more importantly is a Matter thread border router, which means it could act as the central hub for all the Matter compatible smart devices in your home, helping everything talk to each other and work together. Now, for me, this maybe hints at Apple's intentions with this product and their positioning of this relaunched HomePod as a smart hub for your entire smart home. Okay, on to how it sounds. Now, there's no denying this is a great speaker. The first HomePod was also a great speaker, but again, there have been some changes. We've got the same woofer, but Apple have actually removed 2 of the tweeters and 2 of the mics in the HomePod 2, leaving us with 5 tweeters and 4 far-field microphones. Now, I did buy the old HomePod, but did end up sending it back, so I am going off memory here in terms of a comparison. But I'd say that the removal of the tweeters hasn't had a negative impact on the performance, and the 2 offer a comparable sound. I think that's due to that S7 chip, which can deliver that better acoustic processing. In general, I'd say the speaker goes a lot deeper than you'd think for something of this size. The mids are strong and the vocals are clear and pronounced. The 360-degree sound is great and does a good job of filling a space and producing a wide soundstage. Overall, I'd say it gives a nice, warm, rich sound, and for 300 quid, it's a good sounding product. It does also have room sensing technology that adjusts the sound depending on the position of your speaker. So if it's close to a wall, it will optimize the performance accordingly. And in general, we found this to work well when placing the HomePod in different scenarios. However, we would like to have the option to toggle this on and off to really see the benefit. Now for me, it's natural to compare this with the Sonos One Gen 2, as both are targeting a good audio performance. Now the one is pretty similar in size, but is £100 cheaper. So I'll be doing an in-depth comparison on the both of these two in one of our next videos, so make sure you subscribe to catch that on our channel soon. But on the whole, there are a few differences in sound performance that I can highlight. The standout thing that you'll notice straight away is the low-end performance, and the HomePod does outperform the likes of the Sonos One and similar products. I'd also say that the mid-range, treble, and vocals all sound slightly better on the HomePod as well. It's only just, and to be honest, only noticeable in certain tracks, but there is a slight edge there. So is the performance £100 better on the HomePod? Well, to be honest, unless you love bass and that's the most important element for you, then no, I don't think so. But again, I want to do some more testing for a full comparison, and I'll be sure to share some examples so you guys can really see for yourselves. Now you can also have a stereo pair from two of the HomePod 2s, and that's where the sound really does get impressive. You can achieve a full Dolby Atmos setup with support for spatial audio, which when the track is mixed well, is pretty awesome, and it definitely offers a more immersive listening experience with its virtual array of sound beams and wide soundstage. I don't think it's crying out for a sub either, unless you're maybe in a larger, more open plan space. So for £600, it's a pretty formidable package for Apple Music listeners wanting to get the most out of spatial audio. I think that the combination of the two of these HomePods will also be a very popular option for those with an Apple TV. However, this setup of course doesn't come in cheap, sitting at £600 for a pair, which would get you a decent soundbar. So again, I'm interested to test these out in a comparison with a soundbar, maybe something like the Sonos Beam Gen 2 or the Bose 600, which do come in considerably cheaper and are dedicated soundbars. Now my initial audio thoughts are that a pair of HomePods will give more bass than a Beam, but the dialogue wouldn't be as crisp, and I don't think you get as realistic effects for your TV and movies. Generally, I'd prefer probably to opt for a soundbar in this scenario, as you can have more flexibility to play all of your sources, and you can upgrade over time with bass or rears, which you could do with the likes of Sonos or Bose, for example. Okay, we've got some upgrades from the HomePod One, and it sounds great, so why am I not keeping this speaker? Well, there are a lot of things missing for me. Firstly, there's no support for Bluetooth, there's no line in, and you're also restricted in terms of compatibility. This speaker currently is simply a no-go for non-Apple or AirPlay devices and smart homes in Google or Amazon ecosystems. There's no Spotify Connect support, which means you can't set Spotify as your default music service, which as a Spotify user instantly makes this a bit of a no-go for me too. And yes, I can AirPlay Spotify, but this is not the experience that I expect from a £300 speaker. You are of course limited to just Siri. There's no option to use an alternative voice assistant, and I'm not going to ramble on about the limitations of Siri, but I think most of us are in agreement it's the weaker option compared with Amazon and Google Assistant. It's an average voice assistant at best. I will admit it's had some improvements since the first HomePod, and interestingly, Apple have been posting positions for engineers for Siri over the past few years, so maybe a big upgrade is in the works. For me, I see two categories in this smart speaker market. The first is the likes of the HomePod Mini, a smart home device which has a speaker, and Apple have proved that this can be achieved at a very considerable price point, £99. The second category is a speaker which has smart capabilities. The Sonos One, for example, sits here, and with its price point and sound performance, I would put the HomePod 2 here as well. Now, while it ticks the sound quality box, it's a bit of a disappointment on the smart functionality outside of the Apple ecosystem, and the classic Apple products work great with other Apple products, which, when it's sitting in the wider market that this is, leaves it as a fairly average smart speaker for me. But if being a decent speaker is enough for you, then you just need to weigh up your other options options at the £300 price point for sound performance. Now, it's not all doom and gloom, and far from it, and to be honest, I don't think this speaker will flop. And that's because I do think there are a few groups of people that this speaker is perfect for. This is a decent option for those of you with a collection of Apple products already, who have an Apple Music subscription, are happy with Siri, or maybe you are an Apple HomeKit smart home user. Likewise, if you want to connect your Apple TV or would make the most of Apple exclusive functionality, such as asking Siri for the location of your family members through Find My Friends, which I see as a great feature for parents, for example, then this is a solid addition to your collection. On the whole, this speaker is for Apple users and has been designed to work best for Apple Music subscribers. There is also now a huge market of HomePod Mini owners who are maybe looking for a step up in sound performance. Those who are happy with HomePod Mini definitely won't mind the limitations of the HomePod 2, and they are used to Siri and the smart functionality of this ecosystem. In fact, I think it's the popularity of HomePod Mini and the fact that Apple sold just under 4.5 million of them in Q1 of 2022 alone that means that this HomePod won't be the same failure as the first. Apple have created much more of a market for it now. However, there are no extra features on the HomePod 2 over the Mini other than the Matter thread, so you're paying for the step up in sound quality alone, and the jump from £99 to £299 is pretty big. Do I think the step up in sound performance is worth an extra £200? Honestly, no I don't. But do I think people will buy it anyway? Yeah, I do. So I can only be left wondering why Apple have brought this back. Like, what's the reason? Have they seen the success of other smart speakers like the Sonos One and had FOMO? Or is there a bigger plan at work that we're still a little bit in the dark about right now? Is it a big Siri overhaul? Is it the plan for HomePod 2 to sit at the center of your smart home with Matter? Or are Apple just confident enough that there are enough HomePod Mini users looking for a step up to make this product a success now? Either way, I'm not sold. Sorry, Tim. You didn't get me this time.